Good rising. Doo-doo. Meeting. Amazing. People are completely unable of having a conversation about a thing. They stick to the talking points and they toe their party lines. Faith is a result of knowing. Knowing is a result of suffering. You can't have faith without knowing. And there's no knowing without suffering.
I confess I'm a little confused, and I appreciate the argument or discussion that we've been having, but for me, it's a little too conceptual, or I don't know, metaphysical or theological or whatever you want to call it. I want to try to understand what you're asking us to do. Let's take two books that have been much discussed.
Okay.
The first one is called All Boys Aren't Blue.
Okay.
And I will quote from it. I put some lube on and got him on his knees, and I began to slide into him from behind. I pulled out of him and kissed him while he masturbated. He asked me to turn over while he slipped a condom on himself. This was my ass, and I was struggling to imagine someone inside me. He got on top and slowly inserted himself into me.
Hell no!
It was the worst pain I think I have ever felt in my life. Eventually, I felt a mix of pleasure with the pain. Close quote. All boys aren't blue. The second is another much discussed book. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's called Genderqueer. Okay. Let me read an excerpt from that. Quote, I got a new strap-on harness today. I can't wait to put it on you. It will fit my favorite dildo perfectly. You're going to look so hot. I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth. I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life. Then I want you inside of me. End quote. Now, Mr. Secretary, what are you asking us to do? Are you suggesting that only librarians should decide whether the two books that I just referenced should be available to kids? Is that what you're saying?
It's about to go down.
No.
Okay. Tell me what you're saying.
Well, first of all, there's this.
Don't give me a speech. Tell me what you're asking me to do.
With all due respect, Senator, and the words you spoke are disturbing, especially coming out of your mouth is very disturbing. But what I would also tell you that we're not advocating for kids to read porn, to Senator Booker's
point.
What
are you advocating for?
Exactly.
We are advocating for
Please don't lie to me.
Parents, random parents, not to have the ability, under the guise of keeping kids safe, to try and challenge the world view of every single manner on these issues.
You're getting conceptual game.
I'm not getting conceptual. I'm saying that
you are. Yes, you are. Because I want to know what you're recommending. It sounds to me like what some of you are saying, the librarians should decide who gets to see that book.
I'm saying when individual parents are allowed to make a decision of where that line is, and To Kill a Mockingbird, which involves a rape scene, should that book be pulled from our libraries? I think it becomes a slippery slope.
I think you ought to think about it a little bit more before you come here.
I've thought about,
if you're going to propose something, you ought to be able, in 30 seconds to be able to explain what
Senator-
you're asking us to do.
Correct.
Senator,
Ms. Kelly, what do you understand? Well, let me skip you for a second. Mr. Cameron, tell me what you're proposing.
It's pronounced mix.
Mix? Is that how would you like me to refer to you?
Senator, your definition of sexual is synonymous with LGBTQ identity.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you to tell me you read those two excerpts. Do you
Genderqueer.
think that, are you asking that only librarians and not parents have any say in whether minors can read those books? Is that what you're saying?
Genderqueer has never been in my school library, so it's never been banned.
Well, suppose it was. Should it be up just to the librarian, or should parents have a say?
Ooh, that's a good one.
There should be facilitation of collaboration between
Should
students.
parents have
and
a say?
educators. Parents should be working with students and educators to be
Okay.
making decisions because students
All right. And
are
who
these-
decides ultimately? The librarian, or do you take a vote, or who takes the vote?
You got me.
book review committees in the community in my school district.
You want a committee to decide?
There are committees.
Okay. Well, I'm asking you, how do we decide whether the two books that I just referenced should be available in the library? What would you, if you were running things, what would you do?
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
All Boys Aren't Blue, the scene you mentioned, is about sexual abuse.
I know what it's about.
It's not
What would
erotic.
you do in terms of making the books available? Would you say anybody can see them, or they have to be in a special session?
Here we go.
Students who do not read books like All Boys Aren't Blue cannot learn what is
I
appropriate.
understand that.
They cannot learn
I understand, but none of
about
you want to
abuse.
answer my question. You come here and you say censorship is bad, and of course it's bad. But the obvious response is, okay, you heard the books we're talking about. Okay, we're not talking about Catcher in the Rye. So tell me what you want, who gets to decide. And all I've heard is the librarians. And parents have nothing to do with it. And if that's your response, what planet did you just parachute in from?
Parents, Senator.
Or what country, more appropriately? This is not China.
Parents, Senator, for all due respect, parents absolutely have a say. My parents were immigrants, came to this country. We never checked out books without our parents seeing what books we were reading.
Stop the cap.
They encourage us to read
Mr.
books.
Secretary, I understand this is good for your politics back home.
It's got nothing to do with my politics. My bill is
Of course it
passed.
does.
My
It
bill is
has
passed.
everything to do with your
I'm here-
politics.
I'm here to-
But you came here
I'm only going to say this one more time, sir. Calm down.
with a problem, and I'm trying to understand the solution, and you don't have one.
We solved the solution. We solved the solution in
Other than to
Illinois.
tell us that we don't agree with you, we'll be on the wrong side of history.
We solved the problem in Illinois. We fixed it because we.
Well, there
passed
are
laws
others
that
you
make-
could work on.
Well, that's why
I'm
I'm
out
here
of
to help.
time. Thank
I'm
you,
to
Mr.
help-
Chairman.
To help other states make these decisions.
It is violent rhetoric. What was it when Joe Biden said in 2020, what we can't let happen is let this primary become a negative bloodbath?
Read because he is a candidate. We're talking about the 2024 election. You should read what he said in its context. So you got to read what he said in context.
Bloodbath is an ugly word.
We
When
got-
Trump uses it, what is it
It's
when
not-
Biden uses it?
No. Let's be very clear. You got to actually ask me the question in context of what it was said, right?
Oh, hell no.
And what it was said when he said that, right? In his remarks, in his speech, right? And so that's being disingenuous in your question.
I'm reading a direct quote from Joe Biden. What we can't let happen is let this primary become a negative bloodbath.
He was talking about a group of people. A group of people. That's what he's talking about.
Okay.
What the president was talking about during the primary was not to allow it to be the words and the primary and that election to become negative. Two different things. They're not the same. They're not the same. And your question is disingenuous. And so, look, I'm going to be really mindful here. I'm going to be really careful. We have to denounce violent rhetoric. wherever it comes from, a former leader, we have to denounce that, because we saw what happened on January 6th. We saw what happened there. When you have a mob of 2,000 people go to the Capitol because they didn't believe in the free and fair election that just happened, of violent rhetoric, you got to denounce that. That's not what leaders should be doing. All right, I think I have to go. Go ahead, Aaron. Go ahead. It's been a while. Hi.
Yes. Hello.
Where have you been?
Just preparing for this moment.
I think I'm going to disappoint you really badly if you've been preparing all this time for this moment. It's not going to be that exciting.
Come on!
I'm
Well,
pretty sure.
let's see. Corinne, why do you think it is that more and more people polled feel like over time, President Biden is getting less and less mentally sharp?
Which poll is this?
ABC has President Biden's rating for health since May down 5 points, and for mental sharpness down 4 points.
Nice.
You know, I have to say that's a little confusing for me, because if you look at what this president has done the last 3 years, historical pieces of legislation, right? When it comes to bipartisan infrastructure deal, many presidents before, like your favorite president, had said that.
Who's my favorite president?
Why don't we let the American people guess? But had said, wait, no, let me finish. You asked me a question. I'm gonna. No. Let me finish.
No!
And you'll guess who I'm talking about. Who used to say, Infrastructure Week, which was a punchline, became a joke, and now we are seeing infrastructure decade because of this president. There's the Chips and Science Act, right? There is the Inflation Reduction Act.
Here we go again.
These are legislation that is going to have a difference for generations to come, right? And so this is something that this president has done. That's pretty sharp for this president to have been able to do that. Let's look at the economy. The economy now, unemployment is under 4%, 14 million jobs created. The economy is in a better place than when it was when he walked in.
Oh, hell no!
That's just a fact. That's just the data. And we're seeing consumer sentiment is going up. And we saw just in December how people spent more. And we hadn't seen that in some time. So I think you needed a president like President Biden to get that type of stuff done. Someone who's had Senate experience, someone who was the VP, vice president under President Obama, obviously, and someone who has been a pretty effective president over the last 3 years.
Okay, following up on immigration, authorities in Fairfax County, Virginia, ignored an ICE detainer. They released an illegal immigrant from Honduras who is charged with sexually assaulting a Virginia minor and production of sexual abuse material. Doesn't that go to show that as record numbers of people appear at the border, you guys have no idea what kind of people are coming into this country?
Here I come.
Let me just say, first of all, this is why the president is having negotiations with the Senate, senators, Republicans, and Democrats, right, for the past couple of weeks to deal with what's going on with the border security, right, as it relates to border security. This is why the president on day one put forward a comprehensive immigration plan that more than 3 years now, Congress didn't do anything about.
Boring.
But he's appreciative that we're having these conversations in the Senate. We've deployed additional troops and federal agents to the border who have, by the way, returned more than 482,000 individuals since May. That's what we've been able to do. We've led the largest expansion of lawful pathways, and that we haven't seen in some time. The president continues to have diplomatic conversation with Mexico, who have actually taken actions to deal with the situation. There's more work to do.
Okay.
There's more work to do. We understand that. We have said that. You've heard that from the president on Friday. We understand that there's more work to do. We need more resources. We need more funding, which is why we're having these negotiations on the Hill. But Republicans in the Senate is working with us. Republicans in the House are trying to get in the way. So it's up to them. Are they going to help? Are they going to actually deal with an issue or continue to move forward at a political stunt?
And as President Biden tries to make the national conversation more about reproductive rights, abortion. How many weeks into a pregnancy does he think abortion should still be legal?
Good question. You are a good question.
So you've asked me this question before. I've been very clear. The president's been very clear. We want to see the protections in Roe. We want to see Roe become the law of the land. That's what the president wants to see. That's what the president believes in. And let me be very clear here. It's not some sort of shift that the president is making. Majority of Americans want to see their protections protected by the folks who are here in Washington, D.C., in Congress, by this president and the vice president. That's the president is standing with majority of Americans. We saw that in the 2023 midterm elections, and we saw that in 2022, not midterm election, but the 2023 election and 2022 midterm elections.
Oh, hell no!
They've been very clear. We need to stand for freedoms, for make sure women have the right to make their own decision, personal decisions on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to the witnesses for being here. Secretary Holland, with you, I want to ask you about this memo from the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management that leaked a few weeks ago that suggests that your department, I'm looking at the memo now, that suggests that your department has been prioritizing a climate change agenda over energy security in this country. And I just want to get to the bottom of this and see if this is true. The memo concerns Lease Sale 258 in Alaska, the Cook Inlet project. And I just want to quote from the memo, which I have in front of me. If the Cook Inlet prospect would be developed, there would be additional government revenues and greater energy security for the state of Alaska. The memo goes on. Nevertheless, it's quite a transition. Nevertheless, because of the challenges facing the nation from climate change, BOEM is not, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management is not recommending this option. And what the memo says is that the government ought to charge 18.75% in royalties, the maximum take allowed under the law, instead of a lower rate that would actually lead to more development. Now, did you agree with this analysis?
Senator, thank you for the question. And of course, royalty rates are such that because our public lands belong to every single American, that Americans should get a fair return on the land that that is used for this purpose.
Okay.
But did you agree with charging the highest possible rate in order to discourage bids on the project because of climate change?
There is the royalty rates are, I mean, that's not a surprise that royalty rate is evident in other parts of the country. And I will say that with respect to our Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary, that is her department, that is her bureau. And I honestly, she takes care of that. She took care of that issue.
Well, but you're the secretary, so presumably you understand what's going on in your department. This is an extraordinary memo, and I just want to make sure that I understand what your position is.
You're absolutely right.
The memo says that a lower rate, the 16.67 rate to be precise, would have offered greater energy security. That's a quote from the memo. I have it. This is in public. Anybody can read this.
Mm-hmm.
That would have offered greater energy security. But your department recommended a significantly higher rate.
What?
That you thought would likely lead perhaps to not developing, not moving forward with the project for the purpose of climate change. You didn't want this to go forward. You didn't want Alaska to have greater energy security.
How could you be so sure?
Because you said climate change. I'm just trying to understand, do you agree with that analysis? And you did indeed impose the higher rate. In fact, the lease sale 258 earned just one bid. So it looked like the strategy worked. I just want to know, do you agree with that we should trade off energy security for this country in favor of a climate change agenda?
I see.
Senator, what I can tell you is that the royalty rate for the leases was the most reasonable balance of environmental and economic factors for the public and was consistent with the IRA requirements. Additionally, of course, yes, we are in the midst of a terrible climate crisis, and it's our job to balance those things, to create a balance on our public lands, because our public lands belong to every single American.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. That's true.
That sounds like a yes to me. So you're telling me, yes, you think that charging more and trading off energy security, sacrificing energy security in favor of the climate change agenda is the right trade-off.
Senator, this royalty rate was consistent with the IRA requirement.
Well, yeah, it's the highest. It's consistent in the sense that you couldn't charge more than that. I mean, the memo lays this out. You selected the highest possible tax, essentially, in order to discourage development, and you succeeded in it.
Here's how auto mechanics remove car scratches in just 90 seconds or less. This simple but brilliant.
What are you saying?
What's amazing is the memo, and listen, kudos to the person who wrote the memo, because they're very honest. They say we could have energy security or we could have the climate change agenda. Energy security needs to be sacrificed. Let's go with climate change. And you're telling me that you agree with that. I just have to say, I think that is a disastrous trade-off. And I can't improve upon the comments offered by one senator who said, I'm appalled by the contents of this memo, which make crystal clear that this administration is literally putting their radical climate change agenda ahead of the needs of the people of Alaska and the United States.
Are you kidding me?
That was the chairman. Mm-hmm. He was absolutely right about that. Well said, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to register that I think that this decision to sacrifice our energy independence and energy security in favor of an agenda that is making us dependent on China, that is making us dependent on OPEC, that is making us dependent on every dictator around the world is a disastrous choice for the working people of this country.
That's right.
My time's expired. I have some more questions, but I'll give them to you for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to come back, Madam Secretary, to this trade-off between energy security and the radical climate change agenda that you've endorsed, which is less energy security for America, radical climate change agenda. On the subject of these sweeping mandates related to electric vehicles that the Biden administration has imposed, including now for our military, the metals needed to make the lithium-ion batteries in those vehicles are, of course, lithium, nickel, graphite, and cobalt. Now, can you tell me what nation is the largest producer of refined lithium in the world?
No, I can't.
It's China.
Really?
Can you tell me which nation is the largest producer of refined cobalt in the world?
No, Senator.
It's China.
Again?
Do you know what nation is the largest exporter of natural graphite to the United States globally?
No, Senator.
It's China.
Okay.
So in all of these instances, these mandates, your decision to trade off our energy security in favor of a radical climate change agenda is making us more and more dependent on China. And at the same time, you are denying mining, blocking permits for mines in this country that would allow us to develop nickel and copper and cobalt. Why? Why block the development of these resources in our own nation in favor of making us dependent on China?
I don't know, man.
Senator, are you referring to the Boundary Waters?
I'm referring to the
withdrawal?
Twin Metals mine in Minnesota. I think that Senator Brasso was just asking about it.
Yes, near the Boundary Waters, which is an iconic place and, of course, a very valuable ecological system to many plants, animals, species.
But
There are
jobs
pla-
let me just say this though, jobs for blue collar workers in this nation are valuable resources.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
The livelihood and well-being of American families are valuable resources. The ability of America to have our own industry and not be dependent on China is a valuable resource. Why should those things for millions of Americans be sacrificed in favor of your agenda for radical climate change?
How do you take 20,000 children in the middle of New York City without anybody seeing? They are being put into buses. They are given certain clothes. Some of them were taken out in boxes. You can call them crates. You can call them caskets of dead people, although they were live children in there.
I mean, we could talk about tunnels all we want. The non-believers will say, where's the proof?
When I go into the tunnels, I can't take my phone, and if you're going to do it, the psychopaths will eliminate you. So some pictures I saw that are real, and I was surprised to see them.
But there are many children down there.
Yes. But they're not in the main rooms. They're in the hidden rooms within the walls of the tunnels.
Do you have an idea of the number of children that we're talking about?
It's huge. It's numbers you can't comprehend.